Thank you for joining us for our final video in the Valley Blossoms class series. Today we are joining Vanessa Fromm from Fabric Confetti to learn the process of digitized embroidery. Vanessa will show you how to cut out your applique pieces using two methods. First, you can use files in her pattern that work with the applique cutting machine if you have one, or if you don't have one, she will show you how to use the stitch and peel applique pre-cut sheets that are included in your pattern. She will also show you the details of how to load the designs onto your applique machine. Place your foundation paper piece units into the hoop. Align your block up perfectly so that the machine knows where to place the applique, switch threads, and create a beautiful digitized embroidery design. She will cover tools and products and also share some excellent techniques for working with Quiltworx designs. Pairing digitized embroidery with engineered paper piece designs by Quiltworx.com is an excellent combo for achieving accuracy and perfection in your applique projects. This approach is not necessarily faster than turn under, particularly if you plan to make lots of thread changes. However, the precision and accuracy of combining the two techniques is something you won't regret adding to your heirloom quality quilt techniques. The designs she will demo can be used on many of our quilts as well. The flowering cactus is used in the Irish thistle, the OK Corral. It is a mixer block for the Meadow Star mixer series and also for the courtyard mixers, and probably will be on even more mixer patterns in the future. The tropical basket is used in rainforest blossoms and can be used in others of our Meadow Star mixers. And the bridal bouquet border can be used on any of our designs with open corners. We will be creating some companion groups that can be matched with the bridal bouquet border for the Flowers for My Wedding Ring project soon. You can also just use this design on Flowers for My Wedding Ring as it is. You can use it on the Diamond Wedding Star, the Diamond Wedding Ring, the Queen Star Mixer series, or patterns such as Prismatic Star Queen with or without a border. It can be used with any of our wedding ring quilts if you add the geese square up border packages as well. As long as you have corners and open edges, it will fit. Let's join Vanessa in the classroom.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Fromm from Fabric Confetti, and I'm here to show you how we do the applique for the Valley Blossom quilt. I started working with Quiltworx in 2017. We met at Market, and in 2018 we released 4 patterns, and this year we release a few more. So let's get going. Today we're going to show you part of the applique process for the Valley Blossom quilt. The Valley Blossom quilt has 3 applique portions. One is, this is called Tropical Basket. This is a pattern that already exists. The other is called the Flowering Cactus, and that is ready to go. We can release that right now. And then the third will be the corner piece, and this is from the wedding flower quilt, and that's going to be a corner piece. Today we're going to show you the Flowering Cactus, and that's what we're going to work on. In the pattern you're going to have, in addition to the design files, you're going to have a tiled PDF so that you can tape together the pieces and you have an actual size flowering cactus so that you can see where everything goes. You also are going to get a PDF of the pieces if you decide to use an electronic cutter. If you do not use electronic cutter, we are going to cover that too. You will be able to use the pieces that come with a pattern, with the Quiltworx pattern, that are the peel and stick pieces. We will be showing you how to use that for applique as well. Okay, so like I spoke before, one of the things you're going to get in the pattern is a tiled layout of the flowering cactus. So here it is, and if you look down here, I've taped this together, and this matches the actual design perfectly. You can line it up. There we go. There we go. So that's how it's going to lay out for the pattern. All right, now I'm going to show you how you use the electronic cutter to cut out your shapes. If you've printed this out from Quiltster, you will see that they told you to cut the different applique fabrics in strips. Do not do this if you're going to be using the electronic cutter. I've given you the sizes that I want you to cut out your fusible. and so that you don't tend to waste very much fabric. So this is what you'll be doing again if you're using the electronic cutter. All right, I starch my fabrics really well. I use an old-fashioned starch called Stay-Flow, and I mix a 1:1, 1 part water, 1 part Stay-Flow, put it in a tub, submerge my fabric, and then I let it dry in the backyard. And then when I'm finished, I iron it flat, and it's stiff, because the electronic cutters were made to cut paper, and the more like paper that you can get your fabric, the easier it is to cut. So mine is already starched. All right. The next thing you're going to do is you will use this to decide which fabrics are used for your applique. And what I've done is I've cut off a strip from each of the fabrics, and I've labeled which pieces come from each fabric. It's not particularly important for when there's only 2 fabrics, but when you have 6 or 7 different fabrics, this helps a lot. These correspond to the pieces that are on the PDFs that I give you. So D1 is going to be out of this fabric. D3 will be out of here, D4, D2 will be out of this, so that when you put your pieces on your cutting mat, everything is in the correct, you'll get the correct shape. All right. I also cut all my pre-cut, my fusible. I use Wonder Under or Soft and Fuse as my fusible. Soft and Fuse is great. The paper comes off. You can't be alarmed when you cut, and I've been using the Wonder Under forever. You can use other. You can use Heat and Bond Light, but this is what I tend to use. All right. What I'm going to do is I've looked at my sheets, and I know this is a 2x6, a 2x6, a 2x6, a 2x8, a 2x6, and a 2x6. And this is going to be for the right-hand side of the flower and cactus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I know everything but the 2 and the 5 are going to be out of this fabric. So that's going to be 4 pieces. And the reason it's important to get these exact is you're going to be lining these shapes up, these pieces of fabric, on your mat in a grid. So if you cut it 2 1/4 or 3 3/4, they're not going to line up on the mat. Okay. I'm also going to mark, so this is D1, D3, D4, and D6. Just a little bit, just so I kind of remember. So D1, D3, D4, D6. Now we'll do D2 and D5. Use this. D2 is a little bit longer. D5. Or you can use a rotary cutter to do this. I have always used scissors, and I just continue to cut what you're used to. So that will go with that one. And that will go there. And that's how I'm going to end up laying it out on the mat. Bring out my mat. Okay. And I've sprayed it once, but I'm going to spray it again. I keep re-spraying my mat with 505. Just a light cover. Okay. Move my iron to the side. Now, I've cut with fusible side up, fabric side down. And you notice I use the, well, that says non-mirror. I use the mirror templates. So here's this one. Here's this one. this one. This is going to be here. And I'm lining this right up with the mat, right on the grid. That's why it was important. This one goes here. This one goes here. Okay. Then I'm going to use a burnisher. I burnish my pieces down. And now I'm ready to cut. Okay, I've loaded my cutting mat. On my computer, I brought up the file. I'm going to cutting. Everything in red or in pink is going to be cut. I've got my fabric picked, my ratchet blade, and I'm going to say send. This will differ depending on which cutting machine you're using. Unload, we're ready. Okay, now we can peel off the paper. Okay, and I tend to put these right back over here. If you're not going to use these right away, you can. I'd use a marker or something to label them, just so you know which pieces. You can do this too. You can tape them in place, depending on your system. Sometimes you get little chads. You just cut those to all the little points. Okay. Okay, put this on here so we don't get other things stuck to it. All right, we're ready to start the applique. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is next thing we're going to do is show you how to cut using the peel and stick pieces that come with the patterns. Okay, we are going to cut DP2, this, and it says to cut a 6-inch strip. This is when you will actually be using these from the Quiltster printout. Okay, so we have our 6-inch strip. Take about a 6-inch piece of, I'm only going to do one piece at a time, but you take your fusible and you cut a 6-inch strip. We're going to fuse it to the back. And batik doesn't really have a back or front. Some do, so take a look. But both the back and front look the same on this, so just choose one of the sides. Okay. And you also see what I've done is included in the pattern. This is what you will get from the Quiltworx pattern, and this is what you will have for mine. So you can see this matches up with this, and all the different pieces. So right now we're going to be doing the D2s. Okay, there's 2 D2s on this one. So we're going to peel off, and this is the shiny side. Okay, the shiny side is up, so that means this is the side that you're looking towards, or you're looking for. Okay. Peel out the piece. And then you're going to peel off the back. Okay. And you're putting this on the fusible side. Okay. And you're going to just end up, before I do that. The nice thing about this is you can reuse these pieces several times. So let's fill out the next one. And the other thing is, if you don't have a cutter, this is terrific because you don't have to do any tracing. First, you've got to get the back off. There we go. Okay. All right. Now, I know Judy uses a rotary cutter to cut these out. I use scissors. I'm an electronic cutter person. So just this. You see this way your pieces are exact. Again, you prepared your fabric the same way. You use the starch. And I think there's 8 flowering cactus. And I think you'll end up using these. I think you need 16 of these. You're going to need a right or left. We're only cutting the right out right now. And then what you can do, you can label these. You can peel this off. You can put them on. Use these again. There you go. And then you can just cut those out again. Okay, so you've put your designs on your USB stick. Okay, plug it in your machine. And we are going to be only doing the right hand side, so we pick that correct file. It tells us we have to rotate it. There we go. And this is going to be in a 200 by 300 hoop, which is roughly an 8 by 12. And we are ready. So we're going to say embroidery. And as you can see, the first thing it's going to stitch out, and it's going to only be on your stabilizer, is a basting stitch. And that basting stitch is what you're going to take the valleys and everything of your paper piece and match that up. So that's what we're going to do first. I use a fairly heavy weight. I think it's a 2-ounce crisp tear stabilizer when I do my embroidery. Okay, just cut it. I know I should be using paper scissors. Okay. Whoa. I want to talk about one other thing. When I embroider, I put shape flex on the back of my embroidery because of the stitch density. But when I'm doing stuff for Quiltworx, I can't just put shape flex on the back of something that somebody's paper pieced. So a lot of times what I do is, this is Filmoplast. This is the same thing as Stable Stick. And I put this on the back of the area and I iron it down nicely. And it just gives the fabric a little bit more stability in addition to the stabilizer you're using. And at the end of when you're finished with all of your embroidery, it peels off. And that's just a little suggestion. I don't think we need to do it in this particular instance, but I have done it when I did the large corners for the quilt, the Valley Blossom quilt. Okay, I'm loading up my thread. I love Glide. I love Glide thread. I love Floriani thread. I've been using a little bit of the Iris thread. It has a really nice shine. And I just, depending on the color I need, that's why I use all the, but Glide is pretty much my standard. And I match my colors to the pieces that I'm going to be using. Okay, we're ready to go. if for some reason the stitch does not take, because not all machines love stitching out on stabilizer, put another piece of stabilizer down and it usually catches. All right, now we're going to go line up the, no, we're going to do one more thing and then we're going to line up the, that's your center line. Okay. All right, you're going to see we're going to do the right hand side, so it's everything to the right of this center line. So what I tend to do is I put the top of that will line up with there. I love these wool mats because your pins sink into them and it just gives you a much better way to line things up. I know some people like to use a light table. If that works for you, do. But this is what works most for me. All right, so you've got the top, that's lined up. Now we're going to line up this valley. So you've got that valley, and you're going to go under here, and you're going to line up that valley. Okay. And you're going to go here, and you're going to line up the top of that. Then you're going to go here, and I call this another valley. You're going to go to the middle of that valley. All right. That's the best of our ability. And you're going to take a little 505. You don't want to stretch anything. You really want to just keep those pins right where they are. Gingerly push everything down. Okay, now the next step is going to do this. There's two more steps. The next step is going to do a basting stitch, which is just going to go right into this valley. And if that works and everything lines up fine, then you can say, okay, and then you go to the next basting step, which goes into this valley. And if that lines up and you're happy with that, then you're ready to go. If for whatever reason, if neither of those worked or if the first one didn't work, it's so easy to just pull out a basting stitch and reposition it until you just get it exactly right. Okay, I can pull out my pins and we're going to go load the hoop into the machine. Get it in. That's pretty perfect. Okay, that one worked. Let's do the next one. You see that one didn't. I'm going to go pull that out just a little bit and I will re-stitch that one. Okay, so we're pretty happy with those. This is a little off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this out. That side was perfect. This side, what we'll do is we'll just put a few more pins in there. So let's take, we've got that one right. Let's take this. Let's go right here. Like that. All right, we'll try that. We're going to just go stitch out that last, the basting one. So we'll back up and we'll get that one out. So we have the valleys working, everything fits. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch out the placement stitch for the applique. And you're going to see it doesn't go straight down into the, because your stitch is going to hit the seam. So this will all come up about 1/8 of an inch above the seam line. Okay, now I'll do the next one. Okay, now we're going to go iron on down our pieces. All right, now we're going to position our pieces, our applique pieces. You're going to peel off the back. Okay, and one thing I'm going to say, if you're going to use the peel and stick, it still has the bit that goes down into the seam allowance. If you use my pieces, I've cut that off, and even a little bit more. So when you're positioning them, if you've used the peel and stick, start up at the top, and then you'll just cut anything extra off if you've used the peel and stick. Again, if you've used the things you've used with your electronic cutter, they fit exactly. Okay. I tend to just lightly do it, so you can still peel it up really nicely with a pair of tweezers, and then hit it with the iron. If you've already done some embroidery and you don't want to burn your thread, I use a pressing cloth when I do this. And again, if these for whatever reason don't come off, you can always score them like this, and that helps peel them off. Just like a puzzle, you go right in the lines. All right, and the thread that we started off with was the thread that matched this, and I think that's the first thing that we're going to be stitching down. I'm going to show you, we're going to stitch out the first color. We probably will only use 2 colors, but I've separated all the colors here so it would allow you, if you're using a different colorway, to use different colors on each one. But here we go. And again, I've used a fill stitch, so this takes a little while. This is different than that's my helper. This is different than a satin stitch. So it just takes a little bit longer to stitch out. That's the underlay stitch. And now it's starting to do the stitch. Okay, the first sleeve finished. All right, because we're only using the 2 colors, we can use the same color for the other middle leaf. And we'll do the same thing. All right, I'm going to change the color because now we're going to stitch out the darker leaves. Put this one away. And I'm not doing it here, but the only time I ever tend to change the bobbin thread for my embroidery on this particular machine is if I use black. This is close, but I think it'll be fine. Then the underlay, and then it will do all the fill stitch. If you see, it's just hitting that seam. And that's exactly what we wanted. That's a perfect world. All right, we finished. That's the right-hand side of the flowering cactus. Now we're going to remove it from the hoop and take away the stabilizer, and then you can start on the left-hand side. All right, we're going to show you how to set up the tropical basket, which is the center section of the Valley Blossom. So you're going to have 8 of these. And what I do is I take this and fold it in half to find your center. Be accurate. Okay. I just finger press it. Okay. This is what it's going to look like. And then I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to use my ruler to draw a line along that, because you're going to line up your hoopings with that. Okay. Next, as you can see, you're going to measure out from the seam allowance, so right in the seam allowance from here, 6 inches, and you're going to put a horizontal line. There you go. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to stitch out this line. This is going to be a 2 hoopings. We're going to stitch out crosshairs on the stabilizer, and you're going to note when we do this that this dotted line is going to go along this part of the arc. Okay. So let's go. We're going to go now stitch out the line that we're going to line this up on the stabilizer. Here we go. We're going to stitch out the positioning line for our block. Okay. Let's get the wool mat again because it's so much easier to use for lining it up. And you're going to take the center there, center it down there. Get everything organized. Don't pull, just let it kind of go naturally where it wants to go. Okay. And I usually get at least 3 pins in. Maybe one more, just so that part doesn't pull to the left or to the right. Okay, everything's taut. And then I use my 505. So we're going to do the right hand side of this embroidery, and the second hooping we'll do the left hand side. Okay, everything's set. You can pull the pins out. We'll go back over. We're going to do the basting lines for the placement lines for the first bit of the applique. Okie doke. And this is this one. Yep. Okay, now the first one that's going to stitch out is this one, so let's find a color that matches that. This one. Three different greens I have. I know I don't have to use three, but I like to. Let's see. So those are the three different greens we're going to use for those. Subtle, but it looks good. All right, let's load this. Okay, well, we finished hooping one, and as you can see, we've had a little bit of pulling. So I spoke to you about putting something called sticky back on the back earlier, and I think that's what we're going to do for the second hooping. So let's take this out. What I didn't realize, and I learned yesterday, is that there's different weights of batik. And this particular batik is much finer, and that is why probably we're having a little bit of pulling on it. There's some batiks that you might not get this, but this won't hurt to have the extra support. And again, we can rip the sticky back away at the end, so we're not having to put it on like Shape Flex is what I use on regular fabric, on quilting weight fabric. And then I just keep it on there. Okay, get this, tear this away, tear this away. Pair of scissors. These are my grid line. Okay, I can pull the rest out later. Okay, so I have a piece of, well, I'll use a new one. You know, everyone makes this. Floriani makes this, and mine is, this is probably Floriani. Of course, I've gotten rid of the label. And some of it has a grid on the back. Okay, so we're going to just pull this up. This is how I did all the corners of the Valley Blossom, because I wanted to also mark a grid on them, and so I really wanted to make sure everything was really stable. So you're going to do this. We're going to just put it on the whole thing. Whoops, I just ripped up my... Okay, and this is exactly what happened with the other one. So we're going to just smooth it out. I'm less worried about this side because we've already embroidered this side. Okay. All right, So now that's nice and smooth. We can cut away the excess. And now what we'll do is when we hoop our stabilizer, that really then we have 2 layers of stabilizer. And we're going to go do our markings. We're going to use the same grid as before, with the same crosshairs as before, and we're going to now do the second side. Now this is the arc. And we're going to place this arc on the, let's see, on the fold. All right, you might see this is going to be the placement line of the applique. It's about 1/8 of an inch. It's just like we did before, above the arc of the paper piecing, and that's because the stitch is going to go back and forth, and it's just going to hit, just like we did the other one. All right, so let's line this up. So I'm going to line this up first, and I'm going to line it up down here. You can see right down in there. Okay. I'm going to put this one in. There we go. And there's leeway, so get this one first. If this one is just a tad off, that's not the end of the world, because this will all go underneath everything. And I put all these instructions actually in the pattern, but I'm just letting you know. All right, so everything's lined up. Now we're going to use a little 505. I'll just pat it down. And I can pull out my pins. Now we're going to take it back and we're going to stitch out the placement lines for the applique. Stitch out the placement line for the next 2 leaves. The reason I don't do all the placement stitches at once is because then you would put all the pieces down and they actually layer. So I thought, all right, I'll just do what you're going to use at one time. So here we go. We've got that. I just plugged in the iron, so it might not be completely warm. We're going to put this here. I love these little irons because they fit in the hoop. You notice I've got several irons. I was wondering what that is, but I think it's the thread from underneath. We'll just take that out at the end. this again. The last thing I want to do is not get these down and then the piece to move around when I start embroidering. So yeah, see. I'm thinking. Okie doke. We're ready to go back. It's stopped, so because it's a change of color. So now I'm putting another thread. I know they're very similar, but they're a little bit different, and I love thread. I love color. So I'm going to put this one on now for this next leaf. Okay, I know it's going to start in the middle, but I don't have everything start at the end because it will end here, and I just don't want all the thread to build up at the end. So it'll start here, it'll go up, it'll go down, and it'll come back here. And you'll really never see that it's started, you know, you just don't have the build up at one end of the leaf. Okay, so let's start it. You can see back here, it really does keep that sticky back. It really keeps the fabric flat. Yeah, perfect, see? You can see that a little bit, about the 1/8 of an inch down there. All right, I'm going to iron these pieces down. And my pieces are pretty much the same sizes as a peel and stick, except where things overlap. I've gotten rid of some of the overlap. So if you're cutting them out with a silhouette, they'll fit into my little pieces. If you're cutting them out with a peel and stick, you might just have to cut off some extra little pieces at the ends of some of the applique shapes. That one's ready. You can see that one. It goes right there, but I think the applique shape was a little bit longer. This piece. I'm going to use a pressing cloth on this. I don't want to burn the thread, so I'm just getting these down so that just tacking them down in the right position. And now I pick a cloth and put it down and really iron it. All right, let's go back. We'll pick the next color thread and we will start the next bit. the next one's going to be green, so we'll just keep going. Well, we finished this. We finished one of the tropical baskets. Everything's ready. As you can see on this side, this is before we put the sticky back, and it's a little bit pulled. It'll all come out when it's quilted. But this side, look how nice and straight it stayed, and that's just because of the sticky back on the back. So now we'll take it out of the hoop and we'll pull all the stabilizer off. So, rip it away. You have to cut my little basting lines. And so now what you're left with is a sticky back. And that's easy to pull away too, because it really is just tear away. I know this is not the way sticky back was meant to be used, but it's brilliant. You can use your purple little thing or something else. I always just use scissors. Sticky back is a little, you have to be a little careful, because what you don't want to do is go through the fabric. And now I go back and just peel all the stuff out of the insides. And there you go. I'm going to show you one other thing that's kind of fun. My dad bought these. They're for watercolor pens. These are fabulous for taking off these. This is what I use on the valley of because you don't have to get everything wet. They're absolutely fabulous for taking out the blue marks. You might have to go back and just touch it up again, but these things are perfect. There you go. Okay, when you get the Valley Blossom quilt pattern, if you get the embroidery for it, this is the corner. And as you can see, you've got all these markings on here. This is the different hoopings that I've figured out. You're going to draw a 2.5 inch grid. Really kind of two of them. You're going to draw a 2.5 inch grid for the right hand side, and you'll be drawing a 2.5 inch grid for the left hand side. Now the left hand side, the middle line I've used, kind of a plumb line, is 7.5 inches up. And then on the right hand side, the plumb line, so to speak, is 5 inches up. That's kind of like I centered everything around that. So this is what your grid will look like, depending on the fabrics you're going to use. I used a white ceramic pencil for this because I really wanted a fine line. When I worked on the white fabric, I used a really fine blue pen. So that's the difference. This way, this is full-sized. I know Quiltworx gives you one just for positioning that's not quite full size. This is full size. This is the way that it should look. And so when you are doing your hoopings and you're trying to figure out, because it is confusing. It's like, okay, you get this hoop, like hooping one is not here because you're going to be layering everything around it. And these are all the stems. If that's the way, you can put this down so you know exactly where you should be looking for the second hooping. So just keep referring to this. I've taped it all together. This is on 11 by 17 sheets. I will put it in the pattern as full so that you can take it to Kinko's and have it printed off, or you can print it off on 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. You'll just have more pieces of paper. And I hope that helps. All right, well, thank you for watching our video. We're not going to stitch all this out. This would take quite a while, but we are going to show you. I took pictures when I did the big quilt. So I took pictures, and there will be lots of pictures that you can refer to that will show you putting on the sticky back and marking your grid and doing the different hoopings. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for joining our video series for the Valley Blossoms. We hope that this set of tutorials has helped you to successfully create your Valley Blossoms design, and that you have learned a lot of new techniques here that you may not be able to always learn during a classroom workshop. We are excited to continue to work with Vanessa on many more applique projects in the future, and if the technique is something you enjoy, check out our other patterns that use Vanessa's designs, including OK Corral, Irish Thistle, Poinsettia Bouquet, English Garden, Watermelon Placemats, Dinner Plate Dahlia, Cactus Rose, Pepper Dish, Paradise in Blooms, and more. Please share your finished Valley Blossoms pattern with us in the Quiltworx support network or by sending an email to info@Quiltworx.com, and enjoy working on your quilt.